How you doing, everybody? Welcome to the Knoc and Knef podcast. I'm Nicodemus.
I'm Knef CEO. And today's podcast is a little gloomy to say. But, you know, it's life, and it might be the worst part of life. We're going to talk about death and the passing of family members, the passing of friends. Especially with this whole COVID climate, we've seen a lot of death. 400,000, 300,000, or whatever the number is
450,000.
now. 450,000. And how we deal with it. My mom passed, 2 years ago. His pops passed 4 years ago. And everybody deals with it a little different. I still have friends right now to this day who are dealing with the loss of loved ones, regardless if it was from COVID or from some kind of pre-existing condition. And we're going to talk about that, how we deal with it, what are the things that you can do to help other people, and what are the things you can do to help yourself. So, turn it to my partner in crime. I know your pops passed 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's always a rough road. But how are you handling that, and how do you handle it?
Well, I'm a different character too. For me, death doesn't. Most of the time, death doesn't sit with me. My father's death sat with me because my father was my first hero. My father was the person I always patterned myself to be after. And he was a great role model. Mm-hmm. And after getting married, a lot of people don't realize we get caught up and consumed in our own families to the point where we are not spending a lot of time with our parents. Mm-hmm. And see, I live in Oakland. My father lived in Southern California. Mm-hmm. So at one point I was down there a lot. I'd see him. But then once I had my own kids, I'm doing sports, I'm doing musicals, I'm doing cheering, I'm doing, dance, all of that. So I didn't get to spend as much time with my neither one of my parents. And then too, my parents is real old school because I don't think my parents have honestly come up here and seen us since I've been married. It's just my parents, my mother really, her thought process when it came to that kind of stuff is different. We always had to go visit her because I've never had a house where I had a bunch of extra rooms because I had kids. Mm-hmm. So my mother was like, you don't have a room for me and this. So it was kind of different. But for the most part, I just feel like I didn't get to spend the kind of time I wanted to spend with my father as an adult. Because my father ended up dying from complications of a stroke. Mm-hmm. And after the first stroke, my father just went down so much because he lost mobility. Mm-hmm. He started to lose a lot of his faculties. So things changed because it was how would I say it? He was a shadow of himself. So it was he couldn't hold the conversations he used to. We couldn't talk how we used to. So I felt like at that point I started to miss out on a lot.
Yeah. It's hard. My mom, she had a thing called Lewy body dementia. And what that does is it causes your brain not to talk to your stomach. So you don't know when you're hungry or when you're full. Mm-hmm. I remember she was eating, and I made this plate for her of pancakes and eggs and sausage. And she literally, it's what she wanted, it's what she asked for. She literally ate a few, pieces of the pancake, ate a few bites of the sausage, and a bite of the eggs, and was fine. Couldn't have been 150 calories that she inserted in her face. Mm. And she was okay. She didn't want it because she didn't know and she didn't feel like, she just wanted it for the flavor. It's like if you grab one of your kids' French fries, I don't want none, I just want to taste it real quick. It was kind of like that. So that caused her to, the downturn and caused her to, stop moving, stop having the energy because she wasn't getting the energy in her body. But that all started from her having ovarian cancer. She had ovarian cancer, and when you have that anesthesia, if you're prone to dementia, sometimes it'll turn it on, it'll kick it up into high gear, and that's what happened to her. So it was very difficult seeing that. It was very difficult kind of going through that. I was here,
Mm-hmm.
and left here that night, and then that next morning it was a Sunday. She passed that morning, that Sunday. I was thankful,
Yeah.
that I was there. I was thankful that that I was there with my parents and kind of went through that with my dad. So now it's me and Pops. For the last 2 years, we kind of making it happen, trudging along, and he's drives me up the wall. But he is him. I'm glad my kids get to be around him and learn about him and learn from him and see the craziness that I grew up with, firsthand.
Yeah. Yeah, and see, my kids, like I said, they got to really experience their grandfather before he died. Like I said, I hate the fact that my mother really didn't come along to where she would come up and see the kids like I wanted her to. And like I said, I took them down there. They got to experience my family, but because we lived here with her family, they got to experience that side more.
Yeah.
And so it was, it's one of those things. But like I said, they got great memories to remember my grandfather by, their grandfather by. So it works out.
Yeah. Yeah. So let me ask you this. Now that, like I said, I lost my mom, you lost your dad. We have another whole parent, my dad, your mom.
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing, or what will you change, or how will you react, or how will you, deal with that next parent passing? Or what advice would you give to another person who's dealing with this now?
Well, for one, I talk to my mother. I try to talk to my mother twice a week. We talk more. We talk about a lot of stuff. She's telling me old stories, family stories about this person and that person, stuff I hadn't heard, and I'm archiving that. You know what I mean? For me, I also, like I said, I've had my mother tell me where everything is, so that there won't be no problems when she's dead. Mm-hmm. Because the biggest problem in families are when somebody dies, then everybody has an opinion on what they think should be done with the house, the money, the this, the that. And for me, I suggest that all the siblings sit down and have a talk about what we gonna do when mom die, what we gonna do when pop die, whatever. So at least you'll have a gauge on where everybody's mind state is.
Yeah.
Because for one, people die, people want property, people want money, people want this, people want that. And me, I'm not expecting nothing.
Yeah.
Whatever my mother leaves me, whatever she has in her will or her living trust, whatever, is what I get. Mm-hmm. Some people, I don't know how my sisters feel about that. They might feel a little different. I don't know. But I want to be able to have, when my mother passes, I wanted to know where everything is to bury her, and take care of the finances the whatever way she wants them taken care of, and take care of her house the way she wants it taken care of. Yeah. Whatever it is, it is. Mm-hmm. That's how I am with it. But that's a discussion that all siblings need to have, because without having that discussion, it becomes convoluted when emotions are involved.
I think me and my siblings have had that discussion. I have a brother who lives in Alaska, got a sister who lives down the street, and another sister who lives in Sacramento.
Yeah.
And since I'm there, I had to have that discussion with them, because it's not only my dad's house, it's my house.
Yeah.
But when he passes, it's like, hey, Pops, what do you want to do with this? So he kind of told us what he wanted, and I had to have that discussion with them, and we all have come to an agreement on that stuff, which is what you need to do.
And see, this stuff you need to know, because a lot of parents, some people's parents have reverse mortgages.
Yeah.
And they don't know that.
Mm-hmm.
So these are things you need to find out where they're living, so it doesn't get sprung on you.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you're trying to take care of their affairs, and you're thinking things are one way and it's really another way.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, for the most part, like I said, soak up I'm soaking up as much game as I can from mom about the family, about life, all of that. From her perspective.
Yeah.
And just kind of enjoying my mother in her old age.
Yeah. And as they get older, you start to realize stuff about them. You start to realize that they're people.
Yeah.
They have flaws. They're stubborn.
Mm-hmm.
They have anxiety. They're stressful. They're racist.
Mm-hmm.
They're they got a little bigot in them. They because they're from a different generation.
Different generation, and life treated them a different way than it treated us.
100%. And my dad says some stuff now, and I just be like, oh, we can't say that no more. Pops, we can't. We're not doing that.
We can't do that no more.
And it's just where he comes from.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like watching them old shows. People like, oh, we gotta cancel. Like, man, that's just what it was.
Yeah.
It's what it was. Sanford and Son, perfect example. They had some stuff on them shows. I was like, there's no way in hell they would show that on TV.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, that's how they went about
Look, Archie Bunker.
Oh man.
Fred Sanford and George Jefferson.
Speaking of Archie Bunker, there was a meme, and the meme was Archie Bunker, and it said R.I.P. Rush Limbaugh on the bottom of it. And nobody knew, but I cracked up. I thought that was hilarious because it's a perfect representation of that. But anyway, but those shows right there, they said some of the most crude, funny. At that time, it wasn't racist. It was just a conversation.
It was a mirror of the time. That's 100%. How people thought in those times.
Yeah, and they came out and they said it. And they said it. So I realized that my dad was a human. I realized that in his old age, he has fears. I realized 3 months ago my dad was deathly afraid of cats.
Yeah.
No, deathly afraid of kittens. Would not be in the same room as a kitten. How does that? You a grown man, but at the same time, he was like.
But you got to remember, he's from that era where they believed you couldn't have a kitten around a baby because the kitten would suck the life out of a baby.
Yeah, it's true. So it's funny, and you realize stuff, and you just kind of like, okay, so you accept it. But there are conversations. My dad had a conversation with me. His grandfather was white, and since his grandfather was white, that was the first automobile he's ever rode, a Model T. Like, when was the first time you rode in a car? I was about 8. My grandfather had a car. I ain't never seen a car. They rode horses. That's how they went to town with a buggy in the back. And his grandfather pulled up in a car in Shreveport. Like, that's a big deal. How'd you live? Oh, it was 15 of us. We lived in a house. It was about 12 foot wide or 12 foot long and 10 foot wide, and had a front door and a back door, and that was it. And when you swept it in between. You swept inside the house into the cracks of the house, so it went under the floorboard. And we had a wood fire thing in it. For real? Yeah, we just went to sleep. When it got dark, you went to sleep. When it was light, you woke up, you went outside. You played in the dirt. You played, you farmed. My dad won't eat watermelons to this day. Refuses, because that's what he picked. So that's history. That's Black history sitting right there. How'd you feel about JFK's assassination? How'd you feel about Martin Luther King? How'd you feel about Muhammad Ali? Don't even call Muhammad Ali. Call him Cassius Clay.
And see, that's interesting that you said that, because like my father's family were sharecroppers. They stayed on somebody's land and they worked in the beginning. My mother's side, my grandfather owned a farm and he was a grave digger. My grandmother was some type of nurse. I can't tell you what kind of nurse it was at that point. But my grandfather would get up, be at work at 4, work till 12, digging graves. Then he'd come home and work on his farm. And, it's like you said, it's, my father picked peas, cotton, all kinds of stuff. My grandfather grew all kinds of stuff. I could recall going to summers. I learned how to slop the hogs and cut off a chicken's head when you kill a ring in chicken's neck when you kill them. All of that with my mother's father. Yeah. So yeah, it was a different life.
Yeah, totally.
And like you said, once he don't eat watermelon because he had to pick watermelon. You know what I mean? It's like,
I mean, refuses. So it's different generation, you know, but you have to sit there and expose. I want to expose myself to that. I want to expose my kids to that, so they know and so they understand exactly what, you know, where they come from. And even though it's biological or adopted, it's still family, it's still parents. We still have to deal with them as they pass, and you know, still make a move. So, but get help. You know, if you're going through something, get help. And that's all you can do.
yeah, and just talk to people. Whatever's on your heart and on your mind, and you're grieving, talk to somebody, whether it be friends, family, or even a professional.
100%.
But always talk to somebody so you can have that outlet.
That's Knoc. I'm Knef. Till next time.
Peace.